Thank you, thank you. Here we are. Oh my God. We're back live again. I love it. I'm so excited. Are you guys excited? I can't see you. Yeah. 34th conference. How many of you have been here for all 34? How about 30 of them? Yeah? Oh, that's awesome. We just still got a few hangers on. That's fantastic. Yeah, can we get an award? Cash award? I prefer cash. A bottle of whiskey would be nice. That'd be cool. Anyway, all right. Well, welcome everybody to the 34th. I'd say the 34th annual. We had a few years that we skipped, but 34 years this has been going on. It actually started in 1988. And we are keeping this thing going, and it's because you guys keep coming out and listening to what everybody says. So thank you for being here. I'm only going to go over one rule right now. Please turn your cell phone ringers off. Okay, very, very much appreciate that. So before we get started, I get to throw out some of my wisdom to you here, I guess. For a long time now, the UFO phenomenon has been labeled as a hoax, strongly tied to conspiracy theories. For professionals of science and journalism, interest in the subject has been tantamount to career suicide. Even I got called into the boss's office one time because a newspaper article quoted me in St. Louis, and I work for a pharmaceutical company, for God's sakes. I guess they were worried about their reputation, right? So while public interest in the subject has certainly grown over the last 50 years, it has largely remained a topic of entertainment that was studied by people that were weird or a little crazy. If you went to a bookstore, for instance, 50 years ago, you could actually find a section that was called UFO books. Okay, and then it changed over time to speculative. And then it got worse, fringe. You guys remember that label? And now it's called New Age and Alternative Beliefs. Okay, it's a much gentler, here's where the crazy people have their books, okay? So we used to turn to three places to find the truth: academia, the government, and the press. Those were the days. Those were the days when the press kept everybody honest. So yeah, I wish that was true. So when it came to UFOs, academia basically treated the subject like a laughable fantasy, because if there's intelligent life out there, it cannot or will not come here, right? The government has typically flat out denied the existence of UFOs and explained away the phenomenon with more plausible earthly explanations, regardless of how ludicrous those have been. And the press has treated UFOs as fluffy entertainment pieces. So times have changed. Since the advent of the internet, coupled with the power of our cell phones, the vast majority of knowledge and information in the world is now available to everybody at a moment's notice. This creates a problem. Just because people have access to unlimited information doesn't make them smarter or wiser. Right? Have you heard the phrase, I can teach it to you, but I can't understand it for you? So what we find is when people are overwhelmed with information like we are right now, they find it even harder to discern the truth. So what else has changed is that academic science has become even harder to understand. We have an intellectual segregation in society that's gotten much wider. We no longer believe that the government serves the best interest of the people. And the press has aligned themselves with the extreme political and social beliefs to the point where we have no idea how they're going to color the stories except possibly yellow. Okay, so in the absence of understanding and certainty, people will adopt or believe anything in order to feel comfortable. Case in point, birds aren't real. Okay. How many of you have heard of the birds aren't real movement? Okay. You're about to. So I'm quoting from a New York Times article about them. In January 2017, a young man named Peter McAdoe traveled to Memphis to visit some friends. Donald Trump had just been sworn in as president. There was a women's march going on downtown. Pro-Trump counter-protesters were also there. When Mr. McAdoe saw them, he went and ripped a sign off of the wall and turned it over and wrote 3 random words on the sign: "Birds aren't real." It was a spontaneous joke, he said, but it was a reflection of the absurdity everyone was feeling at the time. So Mr. McAdoe then walked around and improvised the birds aren't real conspiracy lore. He said he was part of a greater movement that believed that birds had been replaced with surveillance drones and that the cover-up began in the 1970s. He just made this up on the fly as a joke. Unbeknownst to him, he was filmed and the video posted and immediately went viral. In Memphis, birds aren't real graffiti started showing up. Photos of phrases being scrawled on chalkboards and high school walls were posted. People made birds aren't real stickers on their own. So Mr. McAdoe, too, had been, throughout his whole life, washed and marinated in conspiracy theories. For his first 18 years, he grew up in a deeply conservative and religious community with 7 siblings outside Cincinnati, then in rural Arkansas. He was homeschooled, and he was taught that evolution was a massive brainwashing plan by the Democrats and that Obama was the Antichrist. He read books like Remote Control about what it said were hidden messages, hidden anti-Christian messages from Hollywood. In high school, social media offered a gateway to mainstream culture. Mr. McAdoe began watching Philip DeFranco and other popular YouTubers who talked about current events and pop culture, went on Reddit to find new viewpoints. He says, "I was raised by the internet because that's where I ended up finding a lot of my actual real-world education, through documentaries and YouTube." Mr. McAdoe said, "My whole understanding of the world was formed by the internet." Mr. McAdoe decided to lean into the birds aren't real phenomenon. He said, "I started embodying the character and building out the world this character belonged to." He said he and a friend, Connor Gatos, wrote a false history of the movement, concocted elaborate theories, and produced fake documents and evidence to support his wild claims. It basically became an experiment in misinformation, he said. We were able to construct an entirely fictional world that was reported on as fact by local media and questioned by members of the public. Mr. Gatos added, "If anyone believes birds aren't real, we're the last of their concerns, because then they'll probably believe all conspiracy theories." What birds aren't real really is, they say, is a parody, social movement, and with a purpose. In a post-truth world dominated by online conspiracy theories, young people have coalesced around the effort to thumb their nose at, fight and poke fun at misinformation. As Claire Kronos, the Pittsburgh organizer, says, "My favorite way to describe the organization is fighting lunacy with lunacy." For years, McAdoe stayed in character as the conspiracy theory's chief believer, commanding acolytes to rage against those who challenged his dogma. But now, Mr. McAdoe said in an interview, he's ready to reveal the parody, lest people think birds really are drones. Yes, we have been intentionally spreading misinformation for the past 4 years, but it's with a purpose. It's about holding up a mirror to America in the internet age. So what does this have to do with UFO research, you might ask? Well, this is a prime example of the sign of our times. The cultural landscape, the information age, and the instability of our times. So as UFO researchers and investigators, we have certainly advanced our understanding of the phenomenon over the last 70 years. However, we've also been fighting 2 battles. One is whether we are properly interpreting the data and understanding the data that we have been collecting. And 2, the perception and understanding of the rest of society. So I think it's safe to assume that the military intelligence agencies know the most about this phenomenon. However, their job is not to educate the public. They don't have the manpower or the expertise to do that. So educating the public has fallen squarely on our shoulders about the UFO topic. And guess what? We have not done a very good job of this so far, I don't think. We're trying to understand a phenomenon that basically is beyond our ability to comprehend. So it's a very slow process to try and understand something as unknown and as complex as this phenomenon. We argue amongst ourselves about what the truth is and what we think the data means. We've been easily confused and misled by misinformation intended to divert our attention from the truth. Many times our egos have been inflated by the celebrity status we gain, and this taints the outcome of our research and blinds our investigations. In spite of all this, we must educate the public. The government quietly admitted that UFOs are real. Did you guys catch that? I mentioned it last year. Right in the middle of the pandemic, they went, UFOs are real. Okay? I can't stress what a big deal this really is, even though it seems sort of like a passing comment in a world in chaos. Okay? The seal of approval has been stamped on our beloved subject. Suddenly, everyone is interested in UFOs. Have you found this yourselves? Okay? Where people used to try and shut you up at the barbecue because you just kept going on and on about UFOs. Now, I'm serious about this. I have friends that want to host a barbecue, so I'll come over and talk about UFOs to everybody they know. Okay. So make no mistake. The government admission, the release of the gun camera footage, the insiders openly talking about UAPs is part of a controlled release of information. We are at the beginning of what will probably be a 10-year process to indoctrinate the public to the reality that we are not alone in this universe. I'm going to make a prediction on record right now. This will culminate in open contact. And I mean, we all know this has been going on, but I mean the White House lawn, the press is there, open contact event that will happen sometime between 2032 and 2035. Our role as researchers and investigators have just gotten more serious. We can finally play a significant part in educating the general public because now everyone has permission to be curious about it, right? We must be careful what we are telling people. We must have good data to back up what we're researching and teaching. We must have the courage to say, I don't know, and I'm not sure, instead of just making up answers for people. We must be as responsible an educator as we expect of the teachers of our own children. We can sit around a campfire and sip scotch, talk about the craziest stuff you can imagine, okay? But when the mics are on, the cameras are on, and our friends and family are listening, let's make sure we teach people the level of information that they are ready to hear. You cannot teach someone theoretical physics if they haven't mastered algebra. All right. That's the end of my sermon. Okay. So, let me introduce our first speaker. He's going to be a lot more fun than I just was, okay? He has a degree in astronomy and is currently the Mutual UFO Network's chief photo analyst. He appears on various networks, including ABC, CNN, Discovery, Sci-Fi Channel, History Channel, National Geographic, and Science channels as a professional astronomer, a UFO investigator, a scientific principal presenter, an image and video analyst. He also creates visual effects, props, directs visual effect shots, and creates computer-generated imagery, CGI, for productions. He can be seen regularly on The Proof Is Out There on the History Channel, NASA's Unexplained Files on the Discovery Channel, What on Earth on the Science Channel, and has appeared on In Search of, hosted by Zachary Quinto. Also, Contact on Discovery. He is a cast member of the 2-hour documentary Alien Invasion Hudson Valley on Discovery. He has teamed up with Hollywood icon Doug Trumbull to create the Aerial Phenomenon Detection System. I'll let him tell you more about that. He has written a book called The Populated Universe, available on Amazon. He originated and operates 2 remotely operated observatories. Sky Tour Livestream East originates from the John Zach Memorial Remote Observatory in Connecticut, and the second Sky Tour Livestream West originates from the Maudlin Haney Remote Observatory in Arizona. He is also the host of a popular show called Sky Tour Radio on KGRA Radio, with a secondary live video feed with multimedia on StreamYard. The weekly 2-hour show on Sunday evenings, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern, focuses on astronomy, exploring science, and potential science surrounding the search for extraterrestrial life. Please join me in welcoming Marc D'Antonio.
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much. And you know what? Have you guys seen The Blacklist? Raymond Reddington.
It's not me. It's not me.
Sure. Just be nice to him. No remote. Yes, it is. Here it is. Just a second. Let me make sure it's on. It should be on. Now, this is called TBD. And it appeared in the booklet, and you're like, this guy doesn't even know what he's going to talk about. Right? Gotcha. Actually, the talk used to be called Let's Look Up, Let's Investigate, but it's really called TBD now. I've made some changes. And that stands for To Be Discovered. Hey. Right? Now it's like To Be Determined or TBA, to be announced, right? Well, if you think about it, so much of the universe is still to be discovered. And that's kind of what this is about. It's kind of fitting that it's the first talk of the conference. It gives you a chance to sleep some more, for those who don't. But the fact is, TBD really means the discoveries that are yet to come, and that's something that's really important. I think that when we talk about the objects in the universe, like the stars and so forth, there are a variety of stars. There's different colors and so forth. But what does that mean to us? Okay, stars look like this, right? In our world as astronomers, and I am an astronomer. This is what we look like, minus the tie, minus the button-down shirt. It's usually a ripped T-shirt, maybe a sweatshirt, some holey jeans, and different color socks. Not today. But yes, that's typically what it is. And we tend to hide in our buildings doing research and so forth. I'm the other way. I think that you have to engage with everybody, like all of you that are here. And so as astronomers, we need to engage the public, because the public really has the need to know and understand. They want to understand. But we don't always have the capability to explain things in the terms you can understand, because some of these guys, they talk way over your head. And you say, wow, he's smart. What'd he say? Right? Well, that's no good for you. So you want to hear it in terms you can understand. I understand that, and I'm all for it, okay? So I'm going to give you sort of little basics, and then I'm actually going to give you some really cool applications you can get on your phone, and then join the hunt for UFOs and extraterrestrial life. Yes, an astronomer talking about extraterrestrial life, maybe even life that's here now, which I think it is. Okay, I have lots of theories on that, by the way. I don't know if you're, how many are going to attend the MUFON Symposium in Denver? Yes? Yeah? Okay, well, the person who's helping to put that together is in the back here, Katie Grabowski. Make sure you say hi to her, because I'm going to be speaking there as well as teaching, all right? And if you're interested, talk to her about that symposium. It's actually going to be a really nice symposium this year. But when we talk about stars, we talk about the different colors of stars. You can see that laser pointer? Okay, good. Okay, and you see this snaky line going down here. That's something we call the main sequence. Our sun is right here. These are normal stars. And stars fuse hydrogen into what? Who knows? Helium, I heard it. I'm very interactive, by the way. So you can't interrupt me because I'm okay with that. Just yell it out. I hate you. Don't yell out that. Okay? So stars that have just fused hydrogen into helium are on this line right here. Stars that have stopped doing that have made their way off this main sequence and get really big and bloated. And it's those big and bloated stars that seed the universe with the building blocks of future planets and other stars. So it's a perpetuating mechanism, you see. They suck up all this amount of hydrogen, and in their cores they make elements. Every one of you are made of elements that used to be in the heart of stars. Kind of weird, isn't it, when you think about that? Carl Sagan said this. We are made of star stuff. Who remembers that, right? And we are. The stuff of stars is inside of us. Every element in your body was made in a star once. That's really kind of cool. And the universe in general makes life out of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. Chomps. Okay? And that's the way you remember it. And it's those materials that make everything that you are. You're carbon-based. And because we're carbon-based, this is important now, because we're carbon-based, we have deoxyribonucleic acid, DNA, right? We have DNA, and DNA has a habit of unzipping, and one half goes over to one spot in a particular cell structure, and it's duplicated. That's how our DNA is duplicated, okay? That's a consequence of the way DNA operates and the way life works on this planet. And because DNA replicates the way it does, I think we have this bilateral symmetry. Same on this side, same on this side, right? And that bilateral symmetry is something that I think is systemic to the universe for carbon-based beings. Because carbon-based beings are going to have oxygen as a requirement as well. And oxygen being a requirement means that if we want to find other carbon-based beings out there, they aren't going to look like us, I can promise you. We're the result of our evolution, 5 major extinction events on this planet. Okay? How many were here when I did the toilet paper history of the Earth? You remember that? Yeah. Well, in that history, you saw 5 major extinction events that occurred here that nearly wiped out life on this planet. But you know what's the telling part about that is that it started again and kept going. If it wasn't tenacious, if it wasn't built into the structure of the universe to happen, then it wouldn't have happened. We're here because life in particular is tenacious, based on carbon, made from these stars, okay? So when we look at this bilateral symmetry, when we look at the need for oxygen, and we look at the fact that the James Webb Space Telescope, was I clear that I'm excited? Well, the James Webb Space Telescope is going to indirectly look for oxygen. It can't see it directly, but it can see the things in the spectrum of a distant planet around a distant star that required oxygen to make them. And we're going to be able to see that. So JWST stands the opportunity to chance to really teach us some things about the universe and maybe find life. And that's something I think is very important. So when we look at these stars and their colors, it's just important to understand that you see these colors throughout the universe. The colors are really tied to temperature. So if I go back here for just a second, along the bottom here, you see this OBAFGKM. Now, I learned an incredibly sexist way to remember that when I was getting a degree in astronomy. It was, "Oh, be a fine girl, kiss me." What if you're a girl? and you would not like to say that. Well, you can change the G to a guy. Okay. However, there's 3 types down here that are missing. And that's because the spectral classification system has changed a little bit, and those have been sucked up by different types. And that was R, N, and S. Right now, smack. Yeah. But these stand for colors. These are hottest and bluest on the left. And smallest and reddest and coolest are on the right. Now, that's for the normal stars. For the abnormal stars, the stars that have lost all their hydrogen, they also bloat up and they get lower in temperature, so they end up in the M side as well, right? For instance, this star right here is the one that I'm going to show you right now, okay? This star here is Betelgeuse. This one, who remembers when Betelgeuse was dimming over the last couple of years? Do you remember that? It was dimming, and we didn't really know why. We still don't. Shh. We're supposed to know everything. And we don't know why it was dimming. We suspect an interstellar dust cloud or a flare of dust that was thrown up by the star. And that's possible. That's very possible. But Betelgeuse is one of these gigantic supergiants. If you put this where the sun is, it would go out past the orbit of Mars and almost go to the orbit of Jupiter. Now that's a sphere of hydrogen gas as big as the orbit of almost Jupiter. That's 5 astronomical units. That's 5 times 93 million miles in radius. Never mind, the diameter's double that. Pretty big. So stars can be huge, right? And so when we look at Betelgeuse, it's almost approaching at the end of its life, so to speak. It's about to go supernova. That means it's going to explode, and it's going to spew its guts out to the universe to make more other stars, more planets, and more you somewhere else, eventually. You see, that's the thing the universe has a copious abundance of: time, right? It has time on its side. Now, to talk to some people, the end of the universe will be what's called a heat death, where the heat goes away from almost everything, and it'll be just a cold, dead universe eventually. Others say the universe is going to go out so far and then come back and do this all over again, the pulsating, oscillating universe theory. We don't know. So don't listen to that stuff. You hear people saying this stuff like they know what they're talking about. Well, they don't. That's a job for cosmologists, okay? We have cosmologists, astrophysicists, and astronomers, okay? Cosmologists study how it happened. Astrophysicists tell you how it works. And astronomers say, this is a cool object, let me tell you all about it, okay? So I'm in there because I think I had to be entertained. I actually had that disorder. People always, oh, squirrel. That was me, is me. You're never recovered. You're always trying to fight it. So yes, I was dyslexic too. So honestly, when you talk about objects like this in the universe, and you talk about the sky and the stars, you really want to understand what's going on. I do. But then I talk to people, and they go about their lives, and what I watch this. Oops, sorry, I almost hit you. Car. Okay. And by seeing that, I think that's what made me determine that I was going to take astronomy on the road, so to speak, and start to bring it to the masses. But in a way that actually sheds a light and shines a bright beacon on extraterrestrial life, past, present, or here. I've had experiences I can't explain. I'm a science guy. This stuff doesn't happen to me until it does. Then you go, okay, that just happened. Right? I've told you, some of you might remember this. I had 3 terrifying nights where an object was shoved up into my sinus, and I couldn't explain it, couldn't fight it, couldn't do anything about it. Woke up in the morning with a blistering headache and a nasal cavity that was just incredibly painful, bleeding. I was actually lying in my own blood, okay? and I had to go to a doctor. Ask me why it took me 2 years to go to a doctor. I don't know, right? And the thing was, after I went to the doctor 2 years later, he looks up there and he goes, "You got something huge up there." And I said,
Yeah, I know. I haven't been able to breathe out of this for a long time. And it was true. I couldn't breathe out of this side for a long time.
and my voice changed. People noticed, they laughed, and I was like, wow, maybe I should get it out. So we took it out, and I asked him, because it was up there the day after this weird thing happened where I saw something put something up there. All right, and it happened at 3:15 a.m. Well, he said, call me in a week, I'll give you the results. Okay, thanks. This is Hartford Hospital, Connecticut. It's on the record. This is not, hearsay. I call him a week later, and I get on the phone. And I say, yeah, hi, it's Marc D'Antonio. I'm calling for, hold on. The doctor has to talk to you. Oh, I'm thinking, head cancer. No, my head's going to fall off. Oh, no, what is it? And he gets on the phone. Hey, Mr. D'Antonio, I just want to let you know that it's probably something benign, nothing to worry about. Oh, you said you were sending this to pathology. Did you get the report back? I guess you haven't got it back yet. Hello? And he goes, well, that's the story in and of itself. He goes, I sent it down, yes, and we have the signed form saying they got it, but I just called down there to get a report, and they said they cannot find it. And I'm thinking, okay. Now, here's the weird thing. When I went to have it removed, I told him the weird dream I had about sticking something up there, and then he laughed. Ha, 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 ha. I'm sure it's not aliens. And I said, no. Why would I think that? And I said, okay, well, no problem. And I just played it like that. I found out why 4 years later when I went back to him. I walked in and I filled out the intake form. You know those little forms? What brings you to us today? What are you feeling today? What are your drugs? List all the things you do. Tell us how much money you make. What? And, I always fill those out wrong. I'm always pregnant and I'm always nursing. You know why? Because the medical assistants who read this, they're like, oh, another intake sheet. Oh, this one's funny. And, I understand. I have relatives who are medical assistants, and it gets boring after a while. So I lighten it up. Well, anyway, so I filled that out. But then I wrote down the truth. What do you do for occupation? I said, I'm self-employed. I work for the Navy doing special projects, okay? And that's true. It was true until 2 years ago when I stopped that because of privacy invasion was just too much. And so I ended up writing that on there, and he comes in with laughing. He goes, my MAs really like you, the medical assistants, because of that. And he goes, special projects, huh? This is 4 years now after he pulled this thing out. And I said, yeah. And I said, I do classified work for the Navy. And he goes, huh. And he puts my intake sheet down, gets up on the exam table with me, crosses his legs, and he's flinging them back and forth. It's all like we're on like a cliff overlooking a lake together as friends or something. And I'm like this, awkward, right? And he's sitting there going, I just gave up my top secret clearance this year. I'm not talking. I really was speechless. And he goes, yeah. And he go, top secret nasal polyps? And he goes, no. He goes, I wasn't always a surgeon. Oh, do tell. And he said, I was in charge of getting the trajectory right on this particular missile that we launched in the Pacific Ocean to take down an enemy satellite using an EMP. When was that? And he told me the date. And I said to myself, that's Project Starfish. When you look it up, you'll see. It turns out he was the guy in charge of that. Not in charge, but in charge of getting that missile to get to the target. And he held that TS clearance for years. and remained a consultant. I didn't know. So now I know what happened to this thing. Okay, because I had a secret clearance up to a couple of years ago, and I know what I'm supposed to do in those cases where I hear of something that might technically violate national security. Okay. He got on the phone to his friends in Washington, and he said, yeah, I have a patient, and this patient says, we had this little thing happen, something came in at night and did something, shoved it up his nose. Okay, what's the patient's name? Where are you located? Yeah, Hartford Hospital, blah, blah, blah. It's in the pathology department. Okay. And that happened probably right after I left the office the first visit. Now, you see what's happened is they come up and they take it, perhaps, and he could pass a polygraph. I don't know where it went. He'd be telling the truth, right? Plausible deniability. So that's what happened. And I was involved with 2 UFO cases like that where I actually had to keep my mouth shut initially, but I demanded answers from the program office running the program because I'm also a chief photo and video analyst for MUFON. And true to form, I wanted to find the answers. I didn't want to hear bull crap. So we got the answers. Anyway, that point about that whole story is that, I'm not just a guy who knows science and pontificates. I'm doing it from a perspective of having been in that trench, having seen some of the stuff you've seen, and not knowing what to do with it. Okay? So that's why I'm here. So we were talking about a supernova. Remember the squirrel? Yeah, well, that whole thing was the squirrel, just so you know. Okay. Hopefully you didn't mind. If you did, you can just, throw something at me. That's what podiums were designed for originally, remember? Cross shields to protect the emperor from delivering bad news. I'm going to tax you more. That's why I don't like them. At least until now, I didn't think I needed them. But anyway, so when this type of thing occurs, this type of event occurs, we end up seeding the universe with the stuff to make us and to make other beings, other planets, other life. And perhaps even the beings that did what they did to me, perhaps. All right? And that's something that I don't need to tell any of you about because you all are on board with that. There's still a lot of people that have trouble with that, But if we look at the lower right-hand star here, okay, this one here, this is called Rigel. And it comes from this area of that table we talked about. Hot and blue, finished using its hydrogen, massive, massive star. How's it going to die? It's going to explode as well. It's going to make a supernova and litter the universe with all kinds of elements. Okay? Then we have this leftmost star in Orion's belt. This is called Alnitak. Alnitak is, again, a hot, bright blue star from up here. How's it going to die? And it's going to litter the universe with elements to seed life and new planets. This is what happens in our universe. Not all the stars do that, though. Our sun is not going to do that. Our sun is going to pulsate as a red giant. It's going to get up to about here, maybe, like up in here. And it's going to pulsate as a red giant. It's going to, blow off its outer layers. And then it's going to shrink down to a little white dwarf and die a quiescent death. Little white dwarf the size of the Earth. Okay? But still, those outer elements are going to slough off and go out into space where they're going to mix with the interstellar medium, create another solar or stellar nebula somewhere, and eventually create more planets, more stars, possibly more life. Ongoing sliding window of formation of life in the universe. That's how I see it. When I told the people at the university where I got my degree that, they looked at me like this. Is he serious? And I went, yeah, I'm serious. And they said, okay. Of course, I got my degree in 1983, so I'm an old guy. But in 1983, we didn't know any of this stuff about stars and planets around other stars, So here on the Earth, when we tend to look up in the sky, we only, if we look, not many people do, we see some really interesting stuff, right? Okay, we can see aircraft, of course. We can see that they look like this if you take a time exposure. You know how many pictures like this I get that people took and said, look at this long rectangular UFO I captured, and it has lights. No, but you know what? If you don't know, I can't find them, at fault. But I like to educate, I like to tell them what I think it is. And in this case, I recognize these white outer strobes, flash, 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 flash. 6 flashes. And if you look at the FAA's regulations, they have these wingtip strobes that flash once a second. So if you count the number of flashes, that kind of gives you a hint as to how long the exposure was. I happen to know because I took this picture, okay, for illustrating. But this was a 6.5 second exposure. And this shows you what an airplane looks like in a time exposure. It's educational. It's meant to show you how it looks, all right? So aircraft can be pretty readily recognizable, and all these things are true. Oh, by the way, I'm also someone that doesn't read my own slides, because you read way faster in your head than the guy reading the slides, okay? So he's in the 3rd sentence, and he's already in the 6th sentence going, I gotta wait for him to finish this. So I don't read my own slides. You'll read it, okay? But all those things are true, okay? And again, the Federal Aviation Administration guidelines dictate what lights should flash when, what lights are solid at all times. And of course, this matches all those patterns. Now, we also see meteors in the night sky. Meteors are actually really cool. I mean, how many of you actually saw meteors? I mean, seriously now, almost all of you had to have seen meteors. Even some of you didn't even realize that's what you were seeing. Okay, brief flashes in the sky, sometimes that far across the sky, sometimes only that far, sometimes horizon to horizon, leaving smoke trails. Oh yeah, I've seen all those. I'm telling you, they're exciting. We attract over 1 billion tons a year of extra stuff. Earth needs to go on a diet. Yeah. 1 billion tons. That's kind of heavy. Heavy, man, right? In a lot of ways. So we also see satellites in the night sky, okay? We see comets in the night sky. There's a lot of things in the night sky that we see. Let's look at the meteors, okay? They can be 90 or more miles high in the sky. They're above most of the atmosphere up there, actually. And they tend to come in as a streak first, and they flash brightly, and then there's a little streak afterwards. That flash is where they've encountered the bulk of the atmosphere. They've lost their capability to hold together, and then they just blow apart. And when that happens, we see that flash, okay? Now, they are in a variety of colors like this, okay? We have this, these nitrogen, oxygen, we have iron. Iron is probably the most common one, yellow, that you'll see. You might see a magnesium one, and possibly some that are tainted with sodium. These other two are fairly rare, all right? But I have an iron meteorite at home. It's about this big, weighs 1,000 grams, and it fell in Argentina. Whenever I give it to someone to hold, I say, here, look at this meteor. Oh, wow. Wow, it's iron. It's a chunk of iron. So, but they can be pretty weighty, But imagine, on the whole, that thing was a lot bigger. It was probably about as big as this table. When it started entering the atmosphere, then it broke apart. And I've got one little fragment with all these cool little indentations, and it looks organic. If you painted it green and put some slime on it, you might say, alien. You might think it's an alien thing, right? Because it's really cool looking, And as I said, they will be an instant streak, or they'll actually be a long cloud like this one. That long cloud is, of course, the cloud of the meteor burning up in the atmosphere. This is Chelyabinsk in Russia in 2013. This impact of a meteor blew out windows, caved in steel security doors. And you know what's nice about the Russians? They have dash cams, security cams, personal head cams. I mean, they've got cameras on everything. And a lot of that footage surfaced, right? I don't have it. You can find it on YouTube. But this meteor when it finally hit, was 20 feet across when it reached the ground. It was pretty big up in the sky. You know, it was the size of a house, all right, when it entered the Earth's atmosphere. And the explosion and that just the shock wave from the explosion pushing that air blew out windows, doors, set off every single car alarm. Can you imagine that? You know, that one annoying one in the parking lot? Oh, that guy, you know. No one pays attention anyway. But what if 400 of them were going off at once in a parking lot? You pay attention, right? Plus you hear this gigantic bang. It's really something, you know. So what it's telling us is that the universe, of course, changes all the time. And it's not just something that happens on a, you know, random basis. It happens all the time. This right here, this was from one of our live observatory feeds from the East Coast. That's me down the little corner looking at my observatory feed. And on that day, this is January 20th, 2019, we caught this during the middle of a solar eclipse, that little white dot. This is the middle of the lunar eclipse. Thank you if someone corrected me. The moon was blood red. It was redder than this, but the camera caught it this way. And we caught this dot. Bink! Happened right there. It was there and it was gone. That was a meteor that hit the moon. Right in the middle of a lunar eclipse. Once in a lifetime. We're one of 5 groups that caught it on the planet. Can you see that? 5. How many billion people are there? 5 individuals, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, caught it. So the universe is changing, but there's not a lot of people looking up to see it, you know? Now, comets are interesting, and we, in our observatory, we've done some work with comets as well, and they're generally slow-moving. You can see them in the sky with their long tails behind them. They have 2 tails. One's a tail created by the sun, an ion tail, and the other one is a tail of dust, stuff that's falling off of the comet as it's going into its orbit around the sun, right? Well, you know, they move. I'm sorry, we're talking about satellites too now, aren't we? Yeah, I kind of jumped ahead, didn't I? Yeah, squirrel. Yeah, satellites. Yes, what that says. Okay, they are fairly slow. They move like this through the sky. Now, you've seen them. But what they don't do is this. They don't do this. If they do, you got yourselves a big problem because it means the invasion's underway, okay? But they don't. We've never seen that, okay? And they do move in pairs, and I have seen them in triplets. You know how people say, look, a triangular craft? We just have to be careful. The Navy has some satellites up there that do ranging experiments where they're measuring the distance to the Earth from space. And these satellites move as a pair of, as a triplet through space. And you watch them and you say, there's a triangular craft. And there's a triangular formation. And they are deadlocked on. They're just not moving relative to each other because that's how they work. There's nothing up there to perturb their motion and make them like do this stuff, you know. So they're just like this, locked on, and they'll go right across the sky, and people will swear they saw a triangular craft. It's not a triangular craft in this case, but they do exist, you know. The other thing about satellites, naturally, unlike stars, is they do not do this. They don't do any kind of, you know, what we call atmospheric scintillation, which is a flickering. We don't see that with satellites. They're big. If you looked at them with a nice telescope, you actually see there's a solid form there. A star is never anything other than a point source in the sky. Even the biggest stars on the photos I take, they're just little tiny pinpoints, all right? Less than a pixel, 1,000th, a millionth of a pixel, but they're very bright. That's, you know, that doesn't convey the energy that a star gives off, but that's how it works. They're really bright. Now, when we look on imagery of satellites, then we'll just see long lines on the image. And I'll show you one here in a bit. So those, you know, the streak might fade in and then fade out, which is what satellites do. As they cross the Earth's shadow, into the Earth's shadow, you'll also see them as they cross into the shadow of the Earth, they start to change color. They might look white to you, but then they'll change to yellow, and then they might even turn red. Why? Who knows why? Why did satellites turn red? Interactive, come on. No, good. You said Doppler, not the Doppler effect. But why do satellites turn red when they start to go over into the Earth's shadow? Okay, we're getting close. Okay, from the satellite's perspective, the sun is still up, right? That's why you see it. It's reflecting sunlight. But when the sun is setting here, what color is the sun? Right? And from the satellite's perspective, as it gets near the horizon, its horizon up there, it sees more atmosphere, and it sees the sun through more atmosphere, so the sun is red. Sunset for the satellite. Satellite sunset. That sounds like a drink. I'll have a satellite sunset, please. Wow, I don't know what that is. I have to look that one up. But yeah, so when we see these color changes, all right, that's another thing to look out for. And they're sometimes very dramatic. The International Space Station will turn red sometimes, depending on what you're seeing, you know. So anyway, this here is a satellite, okay? It faded in and out in a fairly short order. Now that is a special, you're that guy. They faded in and out. This particular satellite's called an iridium satellite. And they were known for flashing because they actually had bright panels that would shine on the ground. It would shine a glare on the ground. And you could calculate where that glare was going to be. You go out and say, there's the satellite. And it'd be gone. Pretty cool. So the satellites are very, very common. And they're objects you can always see when you look up in the night sky. I'll show you how to find them, too. But then down here is my squirrel. That's a comet in the same field of view. I did not take this picture. Okay, and this is what it looks like in time lapse. If you notice, we took this at our Connecticut Observatory, and if you notice right here, you see the head of the comet right there? See those two little stars? I don't know if you can see those there. Look at it's getting farther from those stars over the period of 45 minutes. You're watching it move in space. Isn't that cool? And that's a comet, and this is the dust tail here that's trailing behind it, and this is the ion tail, that blue tail made by the sun. And the stuff that just sloughs off at the comet trails behind it. And by the way, when we travel through comet tails, what are we seeing? What do we see on the Earth? Meteor showers, that's right. You guys are so smart. I'm going to go now. You know all this stuff. You know, so yeah, we see meteor showers at that point, and that's something that's really critical to understand. Comets and meteor showers tied together inexorably, and they're the reason. So where the comet was in space, we passed through. So you can see that over time, there was probably a time when we passed through a comet while it was still there, and might have struck us. This happened in the early 1900s in Tunguska, Siberia. And a small comet is thought to have exploded in the upper atmosphere, and it burned the shirt off a farmer's back 40 miles away from where it was, and it flattened an entire forest for hundreds and hundreds of square miles around the aerial burst. So comets and being struck by objects from space can cause some issues. Just a few, right? So that said, let's just do a quick, this will be quick before we get to some of the cool applications. Just to get an idea what you're looking at, if you ever go out at night in the forest, and in the northern hemisphere anyway, okay, and you are lost, well, this will help you, okay? If you want to know where you're looking, all right, in the fall sky, when we look overhead, we're going to see the Great Square of Pegasus, all right? And that's what's in the south, all right? This is at 9 p.m. at night in fall, generally. Now, what's interesting about fall is that if you look toward the north, oh, well, we also have galaxies, by the way. This is the Andromeda Galaxy. We see these beautiful galaxies in the fall sky. I'm going to intersperse images that we've taken to show you some of the cool things that are there. That galaxy is 2 million light years away. It has over 1 trillion stars in it. Our Milky Way has 100 billion. That's a lot bigger. And guess what? It's coming for us. It's going to collide with our Milky Way in 2 or 3 billion years. And it's going to destroy everything? No. It's going to pass through unnoticed. We're going to continue orbiting. Maybe we'll orbit a new construction, a new galaxy that results. But we're just going to keep going around peacefully. Nothing's going to change. Because that's what happens when galaxies collide. These are companion galaxies to this galaxy. And they orbit this galaxy, maybe interacted with it. Maybe they were bigger once. And this galaxy just absorbed them. You know, maybe at its core it has a supermassive black hole, an SMBH. We love acronyms. Okay, supermassive black holes are rumored to be in the middle of all these galaxies, supposedly. But that's in our fall sky. Now, looking north, here's the important part. You look north in the fall at 9 p.m., and if you see where the Big Dipper is down here at the bottom, you draw a line through those N2 stars and you get to the North Star. Now you know your directions, as long as it's clear. Okay, but now you'll know your directions and you'll be able to figure out at least where you can walk to head toward some kind of direction that you know, all right? And that's in the fall sky toward the north. Now, if we go in our winter sky, okay, we see our wonderful Orion, which we just talked about. You know what? Orion's my favorite constellation, I have to admit. I love that constellation. Interesting thing about Orion is the belt of 3 stars here and Betelgeuse. Remember Lucy, Australopithecus afarensis? Didn't know her personally, okay? But when Lucy was wandering around 4.2 million years ago, Betelgeuse was bright blue. Because Betelgeuse was one of these hot blue O-type stars. Remember O be a fine girl? Because there was an O star, hot and blue back in Lucy's day. So if Lucy looked up, it would have been 4 bright blue stars on the outside. And in the belt here, it would only have been 1 star, because 2 of them are under 4 million years old. These stars, so in other words, the universe is a dynamic place. It's changing right before our eyes, but our eyes have to be long-term vision, right? But it's changing. So this is the winter in the south. Now, if we go and look in the winter sky, we have the beautiful Orion Nebula. This is like one of the only nebulae that you can see with your eye. It's right below the belt of Orion. You see a little fuzzy spot. What is that thing? Well, it's not a cluster of stars. It's this cloud. This is a stellar nursery where stars are being born and planets are probably being formed. There's all kinds of dark dust out here that we show, and it's really incredible. Now, looking north in the winter sky, you see where the Big Dipper is over here. It's on the right. And so if you see at 9 p.m. on the right, the Big Dipper is there, okay, in the winter, you know where the North Star is because you just follow those pointer stars to the North Star. And now you know your directions in the winter, okay? Now, if we go into the spring sky, well, here, right overhead, you're going to have the constellation of Leo the Lion. That looks like a backwards question mark with a bright star and a little triangle. You actually see that in the sky. It kind of looks like what it is, a lion. You can kind of see why Babylonian and Greek culturalists actually made those into lions, you know. So interesting stuff. Of course, you have Virgo here, the Virgin, and this is Coma Berenices. These are, but there's hardly any stars you can see here. The only one here is Spica. There's one bright one down here. But Leo looks like what it's supposed to be, and you can recognize that. So, but what if, and that's at 9 p.m. in the middle of the springtime, but what about in the north? Well, being that this is also galaxy season, we call it, at this time in Leo, we have these beautiful galaxies like this one here. So we show more of those. But if you look north, okay, look where the Big Dipper is now. All right, see that? It's at the top now, and the North Star is down here. Again, you can find your way now in the spring. And you see where it's going, right? So you know what the last one's going to be, I would guess. Okay. In the summer sky, we have the Milky Way, of course, and we have another constellation that kind of looks like what it is, and that's Scorpius the Scorpion, and it has a big red star right here called Antares. Antares is another giant star that if you put it where the sun is, it would go all the way out past the planet Jupiter in size. A little guy. Just a little guy. But, you know, there's a lot of beautiful things in this in the summer sky, too, including overhead, you'll see what's called the summer triangle. You have this star here, which is Deneb, it's part of the Northern Cross, that's going to be right over your head in the summer. And then you have the bright star Vega, which you'll probably see first, all right? And that's in the constellation of Lyra, the Lyre instrument. And then down here you'll have Altair, which is in the constellation of Aquila, the eagle. And together they make the summer triangle. When you see the summer triangle, you know it's summertime. You also can see things like this. Remember what I talked about right at the very beginning? When stars blow up, they seed the universe with materials to make more stars and more planets. Well, this is a supernova remnant. This is full of the gas and dust and materials with which to make more stars and more planets. And what's cool about the universe is as this stuff expands, you can see how this is like an arc. It came from a part way down there somewhere, okay, and just expands, all right? It's about 1,600 light years away, about 18,000 years old, and as it expands, it's actually pushing on any material that's out there in the interstellar medium, and it compresses it and starts perhaps this inexorable collapse that causes the material to coalesce into more stars and starts the process. That's part of what happens. And then it seeds it with its own material. I'm telling you, the universe is one big machine, you know? It's also a time machine. How many people knew that? Oh, really? When you look at the stars, you see them at vastly different times. You look at the sun, who knows? How old is the sun? 8 minutes, that's right. We see the sun as it was 8 minutes ago. So if it went out right now, there's the sun. And for 8 minutes, we'd have the sun. Then, boom, oh. Right? But that's what we'd get our 8 minutes, all right? But that's the thing. And so when you look at stars like in Orion, you look at Betelgeuse, that beautiful orange star in the upper left, you're seeing it 750 years ago. Rigel, that star in the lower right we talked about, you're seeing that star 1,000 years ago or more. And the belt stars, you're seeing them as they were 1,500 years ago. So it's all 3D. It's a 3D universe. That's the other thing that really confuses everybody because we are not used to thinking that way. It's a flat plane to us. We don't think that it's a this and a that. You know, we don't think of that at all. You know, so in the summer sky, if we actually head looking north, all right, now you look where the Big Dipper is right here. It's on that side. And then you draw a line through it, and you get your North Star. So now you see throughout the course of the year, in the different seasons at 9 p.m., the Big Dipper starts off in different places, and that helps you get your directions. It almost sounds like I'm about to get you all lost in the woods or something, doesn't it? I'm giving you like a class. And when we go out in the woods, kids, that's not where I'm going with this, obviously. So anyway, so that's just a primer. Now the fun part. Okay, now to help you do all this stuff, all right, you all have smartphones. And most of you have smartphones. There's a few out there that are like this. Not me. I refuse to get a smartphone. I ain't getting one of them goddamn things. Nope. Okay, what time is it? Look at your phone. I don't have a phone. Have a watch? Oh, no. Okay. See, the problem is when we look at our phones, we tend to look at them for reasons, what meeting do I have? Where am I going? What's my GPS coordinates? And then GPS, that's a whole thing in itself. That's a whole other world. It's a whole other talk. We're not going to do that. But when you look at your phones, you have to think about certain apps you might have that can tell you about things in the sky. Who has this? Sky Guide. I need to see hands on this one. Okay, I can count the hands. I can count. Just like 6 people, 5 people to have it. What is Sky Guide? Sky Guide is this beautiful application on the phone. It's on Android. It's on Apple. And when you look at Sky Guide, you don't just see the sky and the constellations. You can get events and you can see the sky. But you know what you do? You hold up your phone. Oh, that's what that's called. Oh, that's what that star is. Oh, that's Venus. Okay. I thought it was a UFO. How many times have I got that? Okay. But no, really. But if a planet's down near the horizon, or the star Sirius, the brightest star in the sky, is down near the horizon, it shimmers and does this stuff we call, I mentioned before, atmospheric scintillation. That's scintillation, just for the ones who want to know. Okay? Atmospheric scintillation is that flickering thing that makes them change colors. All right? When people see that, they don't know what to make of it. And I can't blame them. It does look pretty stupendously interesting. So Sky Guide is great, all right? But this is the kind of stuff you see. I picked the Orion Nebula. Look, you can see the belt stars of Orion. It tells you what some of the features are. You can click on them. It'll tell you what they are. And it has nice music. Nice meditative music while you're doing it. La, 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 you're clicking, bing, and it makes a little bing every time you touch a star. Okay, it really does. It really. I'm making fun of that, but it's actually really clever, and I think it's a really neat application. So, Sky Guide is one that you might want to use because, again, you can hold it up and say, "What's that in the sky?" Oh, that's what it is. So now, if you see something moving like this in the sky, you hold up Sky Guide, it ain't going to be there. Okay, and there is your first data point. Okay, Sky Guide doesn't show it. You know, you could have seen a supernova too. In 1054 AD, the Chinese actually saw a new star in the sky in the daytime. And at night, of course, it was there too, several months later. That new star turned out to be something called a supernova, and it had a name called the Crab Nebula, because that's kind of what it looks like, crab. And over 100 years of observing it, we've actually seen it expand. See, the universe is always changing right before our eyes. We just don't see it. So Sky Guide's a good one. You'll see the crab on Sky Guide as well. And you can zoom way in. You know, it's really neat, really neat. All right. Another one, for those who want to know about the satellites. I just saw something go over. Is that a satellite? Pull out your phone, start up GoSat Watch. And it will tell you what you just saw, if it's actually going to be a satellite. And it'll give you all this data down here, which you can learn about. Okay, the angle to it, how high it is. It shows you all the satellites in your current sky. And then if you actually have it do the passes, it'll show you which satellites are going over you right now and what their angle is from you right now and how soon before it passes over. It gives you all the times and everything. You can find all kinds of things this way. How many of you have any night vision systems? Kind of like a little image intensifier systems. Yeah. I know you do, Katie. I've seen you have a whole bag. She's got everything. All right. Well, the bottom line is that night vision systems are cheap now. You can get, by cheap I mean cheaper than $5,000, $6,000 that they are, okay, that they can be. You can get one from a company called Psionics, and there's one called the Aurora, all right? And if you want one that's actually the sport model, the Aurora Sport, I have it. You can just look at the sky in full color and with image intensified view. Full color. Guess how much? $399. $400 is a lot less than $5,000 in color, no less. Have you figured out I'm a gadget guy? I'm a gadget guy. I didn't bring my psionics. I feel like I'm missing something. I left it in Connecticut. So this GoSat Watch will help you with the satellites. It's a wonderful application to use for that. Another one that's really important, I used this on the plane, actually, on the way out. I saw something, and I wanted to know where it was, and I couldn't really get a lot of data from where I was sitting, so I just took a picture of it. This is not it, okay? And theodolite, all right? Theodolite is a great app for you to just take a picture and see lots and lots of data. There's even more data than this. It'll tell you where you were when you took the picture, what the angle is you're looking at it, and it'll have all that data written out for you, theodolite. Now, if this is going beyond the speed which you can copy, or you're getting to this point saying, I wish I started copying these down, don't worry, I'm going to make these available to you. Not to worry. You know, not the apps, but the names, so you can go get them. Some of these are free. Some of them cost a lot of money. Not a lot of money, but some money. I think the most expensive one is theodolite because it's so incredibly complex. Not to use, but the data that it uses, the data that it acquires. So theodolite gives you some interesting data. It's good for people who say, what's that in the sky? Click, okay, I got all the information I need to go try and figure this out. See? Since when do you have that? And you know what else? I found out today, these make phone calls. What, you knew that? Oh, okay, I didn't know that. It was new to me. So theodolite's a good one for you. And another one that's really good is Toolbox. It goes by that simple name, Toolbox. I used this on a shoot with the late, great Douglas Trumbull. I know when Forrest mentioned him at the beginning, a very good friend of mine, Doug, recently passed away, unfortunately. But we were creating this UFO hunting system, and the torch has been carried on by, I think, or is added to by Avi Loeb at Harvard with the Galileo Project. And Jacques Vallée introduced me to, I knew Avi because we worked on a couple shows together, but Jacques Vallée and Doug were good friends, and thus I met Jacques. And Jacques told Avi he should talk to me to talk about what we did out in the desert with our remote observatory. So in short, I'm going to hopefully talk to this whole team. I was supposed to do it like a week ago, but I had so much going on I couldn't do it. But so that's coming, and that's a modern-day version of UFO hunting, which I think is really impressive. Okay, but we used this app when we were filming a movie about Nikola Tesla in New York State at a hydroelectric dam facility. And I used this app in particular. This is a Tesla meter, measures magnetic fields. Now, you might not think that there's stuff going through you right now, right? But there is. There's electrical energy, there's magnetic fields that you're part of. And as you move through magnetic fields, see that in physics, that's the important thing. It's not when you stand still and you're getting hit with a magnetic field. It's when you move through them and they're changing. The changing magnetic field is the thing that is important, and that's actually where damage gets done when it gets done. Okay? Sit still in the MRI, folks. Don't move. Right? They always tell you that. And that's for the imaging, but it's also because the changing flux in the magnetic field, especially those strengths, can really do some damage. So sit still. Okay? So they're safe generally. Generally. Wow. Guy out there going, I'm never going to MRI again. No, they're safe. But this Tesla meter measures the magnetic field, and at this particular hydroelectric dam, we were 300 feet underground, and we're driving on golf carts because it's a quarter mile long in the dam underground. It's an infinity tunnel of hallways with all these massive generators and these big lines, pipes, I should say, that were each, well, way bigger than the width of that divider right there. Big round things. And those were the conduits from the turbines that were being spun by the impellers below us, where the water was rushing down into the dam and starting to drive those things around to make electricity, right? Well, I held up the Tesla meter, and it was like this. Oh, what's that? Like, whizz! It's like, whoa. It went into the red far beyond. And I said to Doug, I go, well, this is why the cameras aren't working. And he goes, holy beep. I can't say what he said. He goes, holy cow. He goes, that's a really high magnetic field. I go, you think? That's a big field. So that's why the cameras were failing on us and giving us problems. So we had to shield the cameras. And once we did, everything worked fine. You know. So as an idea, this helps you, especially if you're interested in, say, okay, you've been to UFO conferences. You know there's landing sites and things like that. Pull out the toolbox. Take the Tesla meter. Look around. Make sure no one's watching you. Because then they'll say you're a nut. I've heard it. And you just generally scan the area and watch the Tesla meter change and see if there's any residual magnetic field. MUFON had a case called the Port Jervis case in New York, where there was a guy who drove a car, and said he was stopped by this ship that came down to his car, did something weird to his car, and it wouldn't start for a while. When it finally started, he drove to a place where he could call someone. And that person he called contacted MUFON. MUFON went all the way out there and examined the car. The person that examined that car was Chuck Maudlin, Lawrence Livermore scientist, good friend. Actually, our observatory is with him right now, actually, on his land in Arizona. And he examined this car and found, with Tesla meter, all right, this one first and then a more precise one later, that the magnetic field on the car was one of those bzzz magnetic fields, something that a car isn't supposed to have and usually doesn't. But it had this massive magnetic field, and he monitored it over 3 days, and over 3 days, it started to fade away until there was none left. So the car did suffer a magnetic event. Nothing on the planet can do that to an automobile. It's right there. I mean, that's very important. But because the data went away over a period of days, which in itself is something interesting, that makes a lot of sense, right? To figure out what happened and try to figure out why it happened and so forth. And I don't think that that's a case that was ever really fully solved. How many of you are in MUFON here? Yeah, a few. You know, the Mutual UFO Network has had its share of ups and downs, of course. I'm going to tell you a little something. I joined 2 years after it was formed. I don't look 150, do I? No. I was 11. I couldn't wait for my first MUFON report, which was a stapled pages made on one of those mimeograph machines with that ink that smelled so good. Right? I couldn't wait for that to arrive. Open the envelope. MUFON report's here. And read, the very poorly written, very difficult to read stuff on the pages. But that was the first MUFON journal. Now it looks so much nicer. There's so much more to it, And if Nancy Vernon didn't put together this conference and run this conference, I honestly don't know what would happen to ufology, because I think this is one of the most important conferences ever. I want to thank her for that personally and for the opportunity. Thank you, Nancy. If you're outside, Nancy Vernon, I'm talking about you. And of course, all the people that help her, like Brandy and so forth. I'm just really powerful people. So that's the kind of thing that that car showed this tremendous magnetic field on it. And there's a lot of other cases too out there that are really important to study as well. And they're all in our case management system. You hear about them here at Ozark. It's just an incredible family, and you're all part of it. Yeah. So beyond this, if you really want to get into more astronomy, you know how in the cities you look up and you just see like a bland gray sky now? Maybe it's a little bit orangey and now kind of white. The orangey color was the sodium vapor lamps. And then they said, well, those sodium vapor lamps just don't cut it. Man, we got to get something better. So they put these white LEDs in there. That's better. Lower voltage, brighter light, worse light pollution. See, with the sodium vapor lamps, we have filters that can block out just that specific line of energy that comes from that sodium vapor lamp. LEDs are broadband. Now we can't do it as well. So you have to move out into the desert. You have to go somewhere quiet and dark. If you want to do that, this app will help you. It's called Dark Sky. Dark Sky shows you in terms of color where the different areas of brightness are, okay? This is Arizona, obviously Prescott. Over here, we have Wickenburg here, and Phoenix is way down there. This scale is the important part. This Bordeaux scale, 1 is completely dark, 2 and 3 are, you still can't see your hand in front of your face, okay? But then you get into the upper 3s, okay, and into 4, 5, 6. Now you're at 8 and 9, you're in the middle of Phoenix, say, or a big city. Ugh. Maybe that's why I don't like cities. You think? I was a mountain type guy. I'd rather have a mountaintop. But if you look at this and you get dark sky, you can find a place to go check out the sky right near you. You look for those little holes, a little spot, like, hey, this is an area here. This is sort of dark in here. Or it's dark between, say, Congress and Prescott. Let's go down the road here and stop right there on the side of the road and get out and look up. But be prepared to lose your breath and your probably your mind, because people haven't seen the sky until they've seen the sky. And the first time I saw, and I don't mind telling you this, the first time I saw the sky here at SkyTour Livestream West Observatory, it was just a concrete pad that we had put in. And I stood on that concrete pad saying, this is the future home of our observatory. And I looked up, and I stared at the sky, and I started to cry. It was beautiful. Oh, unbelievable. Unbelievable. So dark sky will help you find those places that you might also, well, like to cry or enjoy the dark sky. So check that out too. And so you can see here, Phoenix is bright white, and then it tapers off to this red, then orange, then yellow, then green. Okay, this area here, this is actually where we run the Phoenix boot camp out here. It's actually a pretty location, but you see the bright lights of Phoenix out here, and when you look this direction, it's actually really dark, and it's beautiful. But then you see this white encroaching on you, and it's like, oh man, the city's really just over there. So another one, if you're fascinated about the moon, is moon globe. Yay! The moon, the bane of astronomers everywhere. It ruins our dark skies, but without it, we wouldn't have tides, and then tidal pools, and then possibly life. But that's another story, another lecture. So Moon Globe HD is great because Moon Globe HD gives us everything down to landing sites of all the Apollos. Plus, you can actually see all the different craters and get a really good analysis. You click on a crater, it'll bring up its name, diameter, and details about it, and link you to a page in Wikipedia where you can go to examine further details about it. So it's a great way to pass the time if you really want to learn about the moon. So again, it's all astronomy. And then Hanno Rain, the guy that I know who wrote this planet application called Exoplanet, there's a lot of planets out there. You know that Kepler has found about 4,000 with the Kepler mission and then the Kepler K2 mission, the follow-on to it. You also know that there's other missions like the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, TESS. And TESS has found over 2,000 TOIs, test objects of interest, and 66 confirmed planets. And you know probably that the next one online is, of course, James Webb. Yeah. So many things had to go right for the James Webb to work. Thousands of events had to occur one after the other in the right order, the right measure, the right amounts. And it worked. Every last one of them worked. I had great faith, though. My co-host on Sky 2 Radio, Daryl Mason, he was like, yeah, I don't know, I don't trust it. He didn't. And, he said, nah, I don't trust it. I'll believe it when I see it. And I didn't ask him if he believes in UFOs, because that same attitude doesn't work. So the question is, when we look at the James Webb, what's that going to show us, for instance? Well, the James Webb is going to look at a lot of the planets that the Exoplanet app that you can download can show you. In the Exoplanet app, it tells you how they were found, how big they are relative to the Earth and the other planets, where they are in the sky, where they are around the star. You can see those planets that are in the habitable zone and what that means to us, right? Pretty cool stuff. So Exoplanet is a great app, no doubt about it, right? And I think that it would be kind of cool to just give you a little overview of our astronomical outreach that we do. When Forrest mentioned that we did the Sky Tour live stream, well, that's free. We have a free, freely accessible data, and we do our streams on YouTube. It's called Sky Tour live stream on YouTube, and you check it out. And what we do is we look at objects in the night sky, and we take requests as well. Oh, I have my list. Trust me, I'll never get bored. But I had just the other night, 2 nights ago, I was streaming till 1 a.m. because I'm in Connecticut, so I have to start at 10:30 Connecticut time in the evening. But if you miss it, it's on. You can watch it again. And we look at all these things, and one of the guys said, can we see this particular object? And I looked it up, and why, yes, we could. So we went and we checked out his particular object. And then what we do is we take pictures. And when we take pictures of these objects, what we do is we put them up on a private server. I say private server, it's a personal server that I put up there that everyone has public access to. Every one of you can get into it now and look at everything we've taken all the way back to July. It's cool. And they're all beautiful processed images. And it's really kind of fun to look at everything we've done. Here's the observatory in the desert. Notice the door there, STLS, Sky Tour Livestream. That door is a stylized Orion Nebula. Okay? Now, it doesn't really look like an Orion Nebula as much, but it's actually made of bottle caps. The door was made by an Arizona artist named Tara Diulis, and she spent 150 hours putting these bottle caps on here. These are the natural color of the bottle caps. She's collected a lot of bottle caps. All the blue ones are Bud Light. Yeah. The orange ones are this special orange drink that she likes. She didn't drink all the Bud Lights or the Pabst Blue Ribbons or the other. But needless to say, as an artist, everything is art to the eyes of an artist. So she looked at these and thought, wow. And I can understand that. I started life as an artist way back when. And I understand how things like that work. So she actually nailed every bottle cap onto the door and made the pattern of the Orion Nebula. And it took her, like I said, 150 hours. This roof rolls right off. Okay, notice it looks like a garage door? I tried something novel. I took a garage door opener, I installed it, and instead of having the door go down and then come up like a garage door, I just had it go straight across. Easy as pie. Didn't have to do a thing. You can run it remotely. If I had a live feed, I could actually show you on my phone. I can make it happen right here on the phone. But the bottom line is that this location, all right, was 2 years in the making. And so once we got there, we were able to actually start creating and getting vistas. I have a all-sky camera up there as well. Okay, the all-sky camera is right there. See that thing on the end? That's a wide-angle camera, and it's supposed to give an overview of the night sky. And it does a nice job. But it's this thing that's captured the most interesting stuff we've seen out there. Really cool. Okay, I mentioned satellites. Here's one. See that line right there? That's a satellite. It sort of faded in and faded out over time. All right? This exposure here is a 45-second exposure. And this exposure was on April 19th of 2021. And so we saw this thing right here, and I thought that was pretty cool. This is the Milky Way. And you don't see this light with your eyes. This light here, that's the lights of Phoenix, 65 miles away. It's a dark location. But to the cameras that are sensitive, it'll pick up that light, right? So that's pretty cool. Now, the other thing about this location is it affords us the ability to see some real odd things, okay? Who sees the odd thing? A spider, right? No, that's an alien invasion. Hello. That's a giant spider devouring Phoenix. I wouldn't be sorry to see it go, to be honest with you. But no, it's actually this little guy right here that I brought this for. See that little curved path? Yeah, what is that? They might say, well, that's just going to be a plane. Yeah, except this was part of a video file taken all night long. And the frame just before this shows the other half of it. It's a complete circle in the sky. No. You said crescent moon. See, this object here, this is actually toward the east, all right? It doesn't make any sense for an object like this to be seen this way. Let me give you an example. Okay, if there's a fighter plane, okay, here's the exhaust, right? If the fighter plane, tell me, you look at the bottom of the bottle. Okay, you see the bottom of the bottle, right? You keep seeing the bottom of the bottle. The bottom of the bottle's gone for you guys. You're still a little bit there, but now it's gone for all of you. And now as it comes around, it's not there for any of you until we come back to here again. So at most, if it was a fighter jet, you'd see half of it, wouldn't you? Half of the exhaust. That's all you'd see. So why do we see, on this and the previous frame, why do we see an entire circle? Makes no sense. So I classified this as a true anomaly. It's a true anomaly. I don't know what it is. I do know what that is. Okay, and currently our camera actually has a big blob right here. I know what that is too. Because as it turns out, I've caught owls sitting on it. It's like, thank you. Yeah. But there's other things too, astronomically, that we capture here. I went out one night when I was setting up the observatory, thinking this is such a beautiful sight, and then I looked into the west. I was like, oh no, I saw light coming up from the horizon. What is that light? Oh man, this is gonna be a crappy sight after all, that light. It was embarrassing for an astronomer because that's an astronomical thing that's happening. We're actually seeing light pollution, but it's light pollution caused by our solar system, not light pollution caused by artificial lighting. This is called a zodiacal light, and it's the backlit light of the remaining dust in our solar system from the planetary formation. And as it turns out, from the planet Mars. Yeah, Mars generated most of this dust. How about that? Okay, there was impacts on Mars that blew off lots of material, and eventually that material dispersed into the solar system and caused this stuff to be lit up. Isn't astronomy cool? I mean, this is so cool. This guy's over there going, what? Astronomy is actually, it is a nighttime sport. What can I tell you? You know, but hey, if you ever need the garbage taken out late at night, I'm your man. You need a bag of pellets to bring in from the pellet stove at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning? I'm your man, you know. So astronomy is a nighttime sport, no doubt about it. And one of the things, this is the Connecticut Observatory. This is the Arizona Observatory. We're looking for these anomalies in the night sky as well. It's very important stuff, right? We want to find them. The observatory was put here for the purpose of finding potential anomalies in the night sky. That was our reason for existence to begin with. So you're all welcome to join. This is an example of the live screen, okay? This is a beautiful nebula. This was only a few seconds exposure out there. And we got this beautiful nebula, out there with all this detail. This is the telescope in the building with the roof off. This is the telescope control system. I don't know who that joker is. And then you got the main screen, and we have thousands of subscribers. And it's all free. I don't charge a dime, because I believe that information like this should be made available free of charge. I don't ever want to make people pay to learn stuff that's right over their heads. Come on, that doesn't make sense to me. So, you would enjoy what we see. You saw this before. Asteroid or meteor striking. This is the Pleiades. Remember the Pleiades? Seven sisters. Well, that's what it really looks like. Okay, this is the camera control section over here. That's what it really looks like. It has all this dust around it because these stars were formed in someplace else, and as they're moving around and orbiting the galaxy, they pass through other dust clouds and lit them up. That's what you see. They weren't formed there. That's just, the dust is going one way, the stars are going another. That's how we figured that out. So neat stuff, and the Andromeda Galaxy is before. And I tend to be a disembodied head. I'll move around a lot. But you know why, though? I'll tell you why. It's really important. I can't do it now, okay? But it's really important because sometimes people don't know what I'm talking about, so I have to move and be able to point to something, So I do that. But that's what that's all about. Very important, So we've taken some beautiful images over the years of some gorgeous stuff, all right? This is a remnant of a star that is dead. This is this is called the Dumbbell Nebula. This is like our sun will be someday. Okay, and this is the Seagull Nebula, a beautiful star-forming region. Look at that; it's just stunning. It doesn't do it justice to see these objects on the screen, but it really is just beautiful. That's a summertime object down by Sagittarius. We saw that. Beautiful Christmas tree cluster here, and then you've got this gorgeous, beautiful dark nebula down here. Really, really pretty, all right? And so and the universe is a very colorful place. Pillars of creation. Hubble shot this image, years ago, and we did as well. So a lot of really cool things. Here's the Horsehead Nebula. For those that are on my Facebook page, you've seen this picture because I use it as a profile picture. This is many degrees worth of space and so forth that we're taking because our telescope that I set up out there is 25 times faster than other telescopes. So it really picks up, like this object here, this was like 20 seconds of exposure. Normally, I have to be careful because I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. I really don't. But we did work hard to make this happen. It would normally take, say, about 20 minutes to capture this object, just to get a rough idea of the object. And we did it in literally 20 seconds. And if we go, sometimes we go to a minute, and you should see what we see, you know. So it's just an amazing sight, amazing place. Beautiful dark nebula. Remember I talked about the building blocks of life and new stars being made by other stars? Well, here's a remnant of that stuff. This is a star that formed in this particular cloud of dust, right? And that has nothing to do with the dust. It just happened to form there because this dust and gas compressed and the star formed there. And it lit it up from that point on. And this dust is composed of all kinds of little tiny particles, silicate particles, water ice, carbon dioxide ice, methanol, formaldehyde. And when it gets in deep space, it's frozen as little ice chips on top of these little grains of dust. And that's a slurry of planet-making material just waiting to be made, waiting to be used. Star forms, heats up that ice, it comes off. Nebula forms, compression starts happening. More stars form, planets form around those stars. It just goes on and on. The universe is a sliding window of the formation of life, in my view. I think it's just amazing. And who knew that some guy could talk about dots on a screen for this long, huh? And who knew there'd be an audience sitting here listening to him? I'm really proud of you guys. You know, this is the Elephant's Trunk Nebula. This is this little guy right here. Again, more dark nebula, more space, more stuff, you know, that forms more stars, you know. And it just goes on and on and on. That's beautiful. That's right above the Orion Nebula. It's called the Running Man Nebula. It's one of my favorites. Okay, and of course, that's the Orion Nebula, of course. Now, this is where my lecture stops. If I go any further, I don't want to go down that path because there's so much more that we could do. And this is not a course in astronomy. It's actually a talk on extraterrestrial life. My point was to show you where extraterrestrial life can come from, where we come from, and how life in the universe could actually be the rule, not the exception, which is actually the subtext of my book, The Populated Universe. Little story, the populated universe is a phrase I came up with when I was getting my astronomy degree back in 1983. Okay, I'll say it. Yeah. When I did that, the director of the observatory I was working in said to me, you know, well, when are you going to work on your research? I said, I'm going to work on it in a minute, Art, but I got to tell you something. I think it's a populated universe. I said, we're carbon-based animals, carbon-based creatures. We're bilaterally symmetric, probably from our DNA, the way it replicates, right? And that replication process is not unique to our planet. I don't believe that. And the reason I don't believe that is because look at the other animals on this planet. They all have DNA. They all show some form of symmetry. Bilateral, radial, okay, they all show it. Every one of them. And he's like, uh-huh. Okay, no lie. He always looked over his glasses at me, which was always unnerving. I was like, he knows something. He knows something. Well, anyway, I said to him, that's why I think it's a populated universe. We're carbon-based. Carbon is the fourth most abundant element in the universe. Oxygen is the next most abundant, and then helium and then hydrogen is the most abundant. I said, those make up the core of life probably elsewhere in the universe. And what makes you think this? I just told you. Okay? Well, the truth is, I said to him, I believe that life is the rule, not the exception. Mr. D'Antonio, get back in the observatory and leave Captain Kirk to us. Yes, sir. Yeah. And was just a start. Now, that was 1983. In 1988, the first planet was confirmed around another star, an exoplanet. I went into his office. I went back to his office. You got it. I was smug. Okay. And I kind of leaned in. He was on the phone talking to someone. Yes, I understand that. Yes. It was only one planet. He saw me peek around the corner. That's what he said. And I said, it's just the beginning. Thank you.